I'm very grateful for you organising this for us today, Stefania. It's great. I wish I was there today. I'm in Korea right now at a blockchain conference, and much of what we're talking about today is about the effect of blockchain upon Africa and how we, as Block Commodities, are going to be able to leverage off that trend and grow our business. I think in a very strong way and in a sustainable way. As everyone knows, we've gone through several incarnations now as a company, and in a very difficult terrain have managed to not only survive, but actually find a purpose for why the company is there, and to be able to use the strengths that we've garnered through our experience, and also the other bigger trends that are going on apart from blockchain, such as the need for agriculture around the world and for food security. In a way, it's no surprise that I'm in a country like Korea. Korea exemplifies all the things that we're talking about. Of course, you've seen about North Korea in the news. South Korea was very much like that back in the 1970s, some 50 years ago, when the Green Revolution started. The Green Revolution in Korea is pretty much what's required now in Africa. You know, it's not enough to supply education or to provide medical services. A country and a continent has to be able to feed itself. And the Green Revolution in Korea some 50 years ago is now the reason why it's as strong as it's today, when we're going to see a replication of that, with or without Block Commodities, but hopefully we'll be a part of it, across the whole continent of Africa. The lack of access to finance is one of the key elements to any kind of growth for a country or a business. The cost of finance in Africa is huge. We rely on, for our farmers, the ability to be able to borrow at around about 3%. In Africa, it can be 10 times as much as that at the bank state level, and it can be many multiples of that at the level at which the farmers are at, which precludes the growing of produce and harvest, the ability for those countries and people to feed themselves, to pay for their own medicine and pay for their own education for their kids, and to grow their businesses from being merely sustainable to actually being of commercial size and benefit. So our business is around building a structure of a blockchain structure, a logistics structure, a fertilizer structure, because fertilizer is the main input, and that's how we started our story as African potash. Fertilizer is the most costly input, and one at which the costs can be as much as twice as much in Africa than, for example, the Ukraine, where they're virtually at war and the interest rates are half as much. And then again, places like India, where they use about 160 kilos per hectare, whereas in Africa, they're barely touching 20, and many countries are below 10. So there's a huge growth story. You know, if we can get it right, then somewhere between 10 and 20 kilos to growing towards 100 kilos is a huge growth opportunity. So our business will continue to be about growing businesses in Africa, which are agriculture businesses, and it will also be primarily about growing a fertilizer business as well. But as we move on and our knowledge becomes, and our experience is unique, as we carry on, our process and procedure becomes more about financing those people who make up a huge majority of the population in Africa. 2.5 billion people are expected to be on the continent of Africa in 2030. That's double the amount that exists right now. And we'll be playing into huge trends that exist there and are sometimes forgotten, which is, you know, I'm often asked the question, you know, how is Africa going to be able to accept blockchain and cryptocurrencies when, you know, the West doesn't? And I remind them that America is still, for the majority of it, a chip and pin culture, whereas countries like Kenya have nearly all their banking on mobile phones. And stories like M-Pesa, which is a mobile banking facility, are now bigger than any of the banks combined. Now, what does that mean? So what are we trying to do? We're trying to change an existing digital payment system into a digital currency system, which allows cross-border trade and allows us to also control things such as the supply chain. Key to Africa's growth and the trend is obviously agriculture. 65% of Africa's population is reliant on agriculture for its income, and that means there's some 700 million people who are underserved in terms of their ability to get to their input goods, but also to sell of their harvests when they come, but also of any form of financial inclusion. As a result, Africa underproduces because of the highest at the highest levels in fertilizer. As I discussed already, the interest rates can be hugely, it can be hugely difficult for anyone to grow anything. And so what we've tried to do is work out a way of disintermediating those interest rates. And you can do that through our Block Commodities system. As you know, we're listed on the NEX Exchange. We have an experienced board. We've got innovative community of an ecosystem of coins that we brought together. We've established partnerships, and we've got real assets as well underlying the whole of our structure. The stake that we have in our South African fertilizer company as well gives us a huge opportunity. I mean, it's one that you don't really see on our market cap. Anyone who knows much about South Africa knows that it's a largely agrarian country. The company that we're working with, Viper, I'll describe more in a bit, but has a huge history. It has been servicing the community, the Afrikaans community, particularly in the farming in South Africa for a very long time. It used to be the front end of Cargill in South Africa, Cargill being one of the world's biggest commodity companies, and that value is not seen yet on our balance sheet, but it will be, and it's our intention to grow that position inside of Viper, and I think that's no secret, and I think the market's well aware of that. So just really looking at our blockchain agriculture commodity ecosystem, what we've done is we've piloted a series of trades over the last few years, many of which have really shown up how difficult it is to do business in Africa, in forms of the corruption that exists at the government level, and also the logistics issues that exist, but also just really making sure that the farmers have access to capital so that they can actually purchase our fertilizer. In Zambia, where we've worked, we've been reliant on the e-voucher system, which is a digital payment system that the government loads onto cards. The cards are taken to our warehouses, and then they pick up our fertilizer, and we get paid by the government some couple of weeks later. We've had real problems with the way in which the government has supplied the e-vouchers to the farmers, and not to other people, but also the amount that's actually been loaded on and being loaded in a timely fashion to meet the seasons. By controlling that process and bring it, as it were, in-house, we have this great opportunity to ensure that the farmers get the finance that they need, they get it in a timely manner, and that the repayment is also within a structure that we can control. If we go over to have a look at what sort of coin structure we've developed, looking at the coin structure, you can see that there are three main coins that we're working with. There's Dalawala, there's OST, also known as Simple Token, and there's Swarm Fund. They each play a different part in the process to ensure that there's finance and there's investment, and that also coming out the other side, that the farmers have something that is both fungible and cross-border that allows them to purchase things that they really need that they previously didn't have access to. By being inside that whole ecosystem, we can take profits at every single position, but also we can ensure that we create a sustainable market and that we're able to ensure that our farmers and our community of people around the farmers are also growing their businesses, and we grow with them. That's how to create a sustainable business. At the present time, many of the ways that it's done is really, the farmers fleeced, let's be frank. So in terms of looking at that structure, we've come up with an innovative position. It's innovative within the blockchain industry, which is why we're here in Korea as well to describe this to people at the very center of the blockchain industry. We borrowed $10 million worth of coins from Dalawala. Dalawala is a coin, a token, a voucher, if you will, that is a special technology that relates to financial inclusion. So it allows the farmers to be able to get the benefits that they would with a microfinance unit and dare I say it, with a bank. Now, the way it's valuable to us is because it already has a fixed price, pretty much like your shares. It allows us to borrow that at a value. We then lend out those coins to farmers who are then have only one way in which to spend them. So that means we control the passage of the finance. They use that to purchase fertilizer from us. Because we know that they're going to do that, it means that we can then order the correct amount and the right type of fertilizer into the country and store in our warehouses. Usually farmers pay monthly on their debt. So when they get a loan, it's usually a bit like a wonga for Africa, and they're paying a huge amount, and they've got to go and put the farms up against it. Now, if you're running that type of an interest rate, then really you're betting the farm every time you grow a harvest, which precludes the need to do it. I mean, it's too risky. Why would you do it? So instead, what we've done is we've said that you're going to pay back your interest at the end of your period of growth. So when your harvest ends, when you've grown your tea, your coffee, your maize, your vegetables, we will then take the harvest and we will buy the harvest off you. And in that purchase, which can be done either in, and you'll see it there, OST coins, simple token, which allows you to do a consumer purchase, or you can take it in your local currency, which here is described as fiat. And that over time, I think people are going to pick the tokens more because they're more usable. Most of the tokens use in country is very, very difficult. They can't use it to buy goods out from outside, and so it causes a very big issue. We can do all this because we've got very good partners. In particular, we've got the partnership of GMEX. GMEX owns FinComico. GMEX is a FCA-regulated commodity exchange builder. They actually built the exchange that we're on at the moment, NEX, and they've been recently voted a top 40 company in Britain by the government in terms of blockchain and cryptocurrency building. So we're very blessed in being able to have them here and involved with us. So they will provide the purchase and onward sale of the fertilizer, which is very lucky. In terms of our next lot of steps that we've got in relation to the coin structure and the sale, if you look at it as a totality of an ecosystem, it's one that's scalable. So, okay, we're starting with 10 million coins. Perhaps we'll have a scaled down pilot. We expect our pilot to begin with the rainy season, which begins around end of August to mid-September, the beginning of it. So we'll be beginning that with farmers with the initial loans and proving probably for the first time any real user case of blockchain at a truly distributed level anywhere in the world. This is a very unique story. So what does that mean for us? Well, what that means for us is we've now created a closed market in which we can make profits. We can then identify what those profits are going to be. We can meet the challenges that usually exist in Africa that can come out of nowhere. And we can underpin it with insurance to make sure that we've insured against sovereign defaults, we've insured against default of the customer and the consumer, and also against catastrophe. A couple of years ago, we faced El Nino, which was one of the biggest climatic catastrophes to hit Southern Africa. A lot of fertilizer companies went under as a result of that. These kind of things, because we've got a structure and a financial structure, allows us to be able to, in many ways, protect our downside. And so that gives a lot of credibility to us going forward when we negotiate at the government level, when we negotiate with world fertilizer suppliers like OCP and like Yara, etc. But also it helps us when we're dealing with some of the other businesses as well, such as the world purchasers like Cargill, ADM, World Food Programme, who are also AAA rated groups. So, just moving on through that, we've explained there how FinComico works. We've got a joint venture interest with them. We have set up a company with them in Malta, and we will be sharing the profit that comes from the interest, because we'll be loaning the farmers the dollar coins at 12%. We'll be sharing that interest growth, which will be definable with them. Wallet Dollar, which are on the Ethereum platform, will also be doing their necessary growth in Uganda as well. They are already doing exceptionally well in country in Uganda. They're the 6th biggest app on mobile phones behind Google and Facebook and these other groups. They're the 6th biggest, which shows you how important their service is. They've already acquired 100,000 customers, and those customers are on average using the app 3 times a day. So we're the winner already. We're going to use the OST coin, probably, although we're still working this with them at the moment, probably in a sort of Groupon type business. A Groupon business is a structure where you aggregate your customers so they can purchase at discount. So that allows them to purchase solar panels, allows them to purchase televisions and everything else between, including insurance, and doing it at a discount as a group. So for the first time, you know, these farmers are going to be on the right side of a trade instead of the wrong side. And that's what we really wanted to do. Swarm has a very particular benefit as well. It's the first ever asset-backed security token that works on an SEC regulated way. And they're working with us to provide us with funds, which you'll be happy to hear will be non-dilutive funds, because they work on a token basis, not a stock basis. They're looking at the moment, and we're working with them to see if this can be done to raise sufficient money, and you can go to the website to understand more about this, to raise sufficient money so that commodity exchanges can be built through the GMEX FinComico model. And we will be receiving something around 10% of the profits that come out of those, 10% of the equity, sorry, of those commodity exchanges, and potentially 25% of the profits. So another business making profits for the business of Block Commodities is being developed. All of that, as I said, is on a tokenized basis, and so another true innovation that's probably not reflected yet on the balance sheet in terms of its opportunity. Viper, as I've described already, we've really done well with them. We've worked on a basis of providing some cash and some shares to acquire 21% of their business. We'd like to acquire more, and you should really watch us a little bit to see where we go on that. We're hoping to build that relationship with them very strongly, to bring them outside of South Africa, where they want to now expand into the rest of sub-Saharan Africa, particularly into Uganda and Zambia and Zimbabwe, and to use their skills, which are extraordinary when you compare them to what the local skill base is in the countries I've just named, and to really help the farmers to get used to using fertilizer, to use the right fertilizer, and to grow their businesses in a sustainable way. This is a unique opportunity. We really pioneered the whole idea of scalable fertilizer, and people like OCP, who we've had long negotiations and talks with, and obviously we'll be working with, have changed their business models alongside ours, opening up OCP Africa to focus on the African end of their business, something that they didn't have before we started looking in this direction. We also mustn't forget what we started off with as African potash, and that's a huge opportunity. We started off looking at this not just as a blockchain business, but particularly as a vertically integrated fertilizer business, leveraging off our original status as a mineral exploration company in the potash industry. Potash, as you know, with phosphate and urea, make up NPK. NPK is the world's most used fertilizer, and the constituents of N and P and K, nitrogen, which is urea, and obviously phosphate and potash, are in abundance in our original stake position in the Republic of Congo. The Republic of Congo is probably one of the few countries in the world, in fact, it is one of the few countries in the world that has all of these in one place. And so on that basis, we've announced this. We've stuck up a relationship with other mineral holders in the country, including the governments. So the government of the Republic of Congo are in an agreement with us as well to see if we can build, with the right financing, a fertilizer hub in country. Now, that's a very big proposition, you know, and we're a very small business. But as we grow, we hope to be able to take up that opportunity and build the right teams to actually turn that into a reality. That would be a urea business, phosphate mine, potash mines, all of them with processing to actually bag fertilizer in country, facing Brazil and South America, standing with the rest of Africa sitting behind it. It's a huge opportunity, and one which, when a population is growing from 1.2 billion to 2.5 billion, and we're helping them, I hope, with our financial model to grow their buying, is going to be able to make a huge difference. You can probably hear in the background that South Korea is still building its economy, and we hope in Africa to be able to be building that as well. Like Dinka is also a huge opportunity. It's going to be part of that fertilizer hub. We still have that asset. We've managed to create a very good agreement with an existing and well-known mining company, African Agronomics, which is led by someone who's actually been on AIM listed companies before, Andrew Cranswick, who knows the territory. He's a Zambian and is a miner. We've got a great deal there. The deal there is that if he and when he completes to a JORC standard level and proves the mineral resource that exists in the potash that we have there in Lake Dinka, that he will take up 65% of our interest in it, and we will get a free carry on the 35% remainder. So that's a fantastic opportunity as well. So, you know, looking at and summarizing what it is that we have in a very short period of time turned a single use mineral resource company from at the stage that it was at with a death spiral debt position in it. We've repaid that debt. We've now positioned ourselves with Ladinga as being a card that we can play on the table that presently exists in the Republic of Congo with its ability to build into a fertilizer hub. We've created and put ourselves at the forefront of the financial restructuring of potentially of everything, but certainly in terms of Africa, where in Africa we have not got a banking system that banks the unbanked, where we haven't got an agriculture system that provides food for its people. We've provided a system and a place in which potentially we're going to be able to sit at the forefront of some very big trends, including food security, blockchain, African growth, and so on. So with the team that we have, we've slimmed it down. We've got the Right Honourable Mark Simmons, who used to be the Minister for Africa and still sits as the Commonwealth on the Commonwealth Business Council. And we've got the Honourable Elias Pundong as well, who's a World Economic Forum leader. He used to be head of Ernst Young's Department for Oil and Gas. We have a team that knows how to negotiate at the highest levels, and also that has incredible contacts, which is obviously one of the key bits about success in Africa. So we're looking forward, I think, to a very dynamic period of growth. We've made no secret at all about where we want to go next. It's not just about liquidity in Africa. It's about liquidity for our shareholders. And it's about our shareholders also finally seeing a return on the loyalty and the trust that they've shared with us. That we respect completely. And it's why I've stayed with this business. And it's why we worked hard with this business through some pretty rough times. And it's why we're here today in Korea. I wish I was with you there today, and then I'll be able to tell you more. But I can see quite a few people recording this, so I'll be careful what I say. But going back to where we want to be, and just finishing off really with this, we want to be on a liquid market. We want to create a situation of high growth. We want our impact to also be high. And we want to make sure that not just the Africans benefit, but you, the shareholders, benefit greatly. there is much growth inside this company on any of the positions that I've described. And as a combination, we can see that it's one in which it's to the power of several rather than 1 plus 1. It's like 1 plus 1 equals 11. 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 111. So thank you very much, Stefani, for having me speak to the people here in the room today. Very much appreciated. Thank you. Yeah, if you can hear me, I'm sorry that they seem to be pulling down some of the blockchain business down here at the moment and putting up a new one for tomorrow. Cool.
I want to ask how many kilowatt or megawatt do you need for your ecosystem for the first project?
Yeah, you know, when we're talking about mining coins and trying to be a green business at the same time, sometimes these things seem to be a little bit of conflict with each other. I think nearly all the kilowatts are going to be in the transport of the fertilizer. I hope a lot of transport of fertilizer. I hope it's a lot of money we spend on that, getting the fertilizer in country. No, because we're borrowing coins, we're not actually minting them. So we actually have probably a, you know, although there'd probably be a mathematician somewhere that could probably quote something different, but we should have a neutral position in terms of that. We're very much leveraging off existing systems rather than spending the money we don't have to create our own system. So it's really an aggregation of what exists, the best of breed, rather than us trying to relearn new trades.
Okay, thank you. Is anybody else?
Hello, sir. Yeah, it's a great presentation, and it's a very noble cause to help farmers in Africa. Yeah, I just wish you well. I will be looking at your company and buy some shares in it.
Okay. Do you have any other question?
Hi, Chris. It's Chris Orr. How are you? All right.
Hello, Chris.
All right. One of the key things in the presentation which was interesting, you go on about potash all the time, but with the commodities, you could go into, you know, coffee or sugar or all kinds of different commodities using the blockchain. And I feel this is the really exciting thing. It's not personally just for me about the actual potash, but it's what it can represent in the blockchain to do with the, you know, with the sugar and the, you know, the coffee in the future, all kinds of interesting things.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The one thing when we were talking to President Museveni in Uganda, who's been a great supporter. Sometimes his cabinet's been a little tricky, but he's been a great supporter of us. One of the things he said very early on was, you know, we're a country that doesn't use fertilizer yet. We used to be the second biggest producer of coffee in the world, and we did it all from smallholder farmers. There's now depletion in the soil and it's becoming difficult. But a big issue is this, you know, if we use fertilizer, we're going to have something like 3, 4, 5 times the yield of what we have at the moment. But we may have problems selling that because we haven't got the infrastructure for that, and we haven't got the buyers here, and we're going to have trouble transporting it out. The whole thing about an ecosystem is that it functions as a unit and it functions together. So the trucks that bring the fertilizer in are the trucks that bring the produce out. The warehouses that store the fertilizer are the warehouses that store the grain. Now, obviously, there's differences in some of those elements. And you know, some fertilizers you don't really want around your coffee. But the point being that essentially the infrastructure that we build is going to be one that's both for inputs and for outputs. We have a very close relationship with Fincomico. The chairman of that company is also Mark Simmons. We work very closely with Hiranda Mesra, and we are looking at ways in which we can make that closer.
Thank you very much. I mean, on your recent RNS, you actually put the global interest is, you know, looking at block commodities. I mean, can you expand on that, or is that something in the public domain, or,
Well, I don't think these things are in the public domain, but you know, you can obviously see stuff behind my shoulder, and obviously we're in Korea, and we've just been down to Malta. I think people are aware of a trip that I did to Canada. The global interest that we have is both one that's going to be of relevance to the shareholders, I'm sure, individually, and I think it's also going to be of relevance to us as a company in terms of bringing together global purchasers of produce. We've got to work with the biggest. Financial systems, we've got to work with the greatest currencies. We really want to work with people who are able to, I've just got to be careful with my words here, but I think we need to work with people who are going to be able to allow us to grow it into a business that can service the sort of numbers that we're talking about. If we get anywhere close to those, you know, I obviously don't want to overstate our case. But it's clear that this is an original business model globally. There's no one who's done this anywhere, and it would serve just as well as in Asia, India, in South Africa, South America, etc. We believe that there's more than enough to do where we are, and the numbers that we can create in terms of profit and impact are huge, exactly where we are. But in terms of the market, we are at the moment as a company, I think that we're significantly underpriced. We deserve more liquidity, and we deserve to be able to benefit our shareholders and their loyalty more.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. That's why you're...
Does that make sense?
It does. That's why you're the contrarian tip of 2018. Well, mine, anyway.
Okay, Stefania. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, Chris, thank you very much. Anybody, any other question? Okay, I think that is everything. Thank you very much, Chris, for your time.
All right, thanks again. I'm really sorry I wasn't there. Hopefully I'll come back with some good news.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
All the best. Bye now.